Hello, this is Justified Jewel Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Joann Cox. And welcome again to another series that we've been going through with political systems. This one is Unstacking Wall Street. That's right. And I have my continuous guest for the episode, none other than Brian Williams Winters. Brian?
Hey, Joann, thanks for having me back today. Today, I think we're going to talk about unstacking Wall Street. And so each year they do this survey and they ask people this question, whether or not they agree with this statement. The economic and political systems in the country are stacked against people like me. The economic and political systems in this country are stacked against people like me. And this year, in 2026, 59% of adults agreed with that statement. Now, if most of the people in the country think that the systems are stacked against us, then one, it's probably true, but two, shouldn't we be able to do something about it? And our conversations, Joanne, are to try and give people hope that yes, we can in fact change the way that these systems are designed and make sure, put our country, we can design a system that serves all Americans, isn't so tilted and stacked towards Wall Street.
Yes. And I want to break that down too, because against people like who? Because you said people like me. And I'm saying, does that mean he's talking about a white male? Or is he talking about a man that's in a certain age group? But let's break it down. Who is it that it's stacked against?
Well, I think the fact that it's an open-ended question, right? Do people
Hmm.
does the person agree with that statement?
Okay.
And so I don't know if you would agree with that statement or not. I sure do.
Yeah, it's stacked against me.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
again, and I think we can see that it's stacked in favor of Wall Street. Wall Street and the economic interests there, they have their thumb on the scales of the economy, their thumb on the scales of the legislative process, and they tilt things in their favor. And so that doesn't mean that everybody who's doing well on Wall Street like cheated, or certainly doesn't mean that success and prosperity is a bad thing. It just means that the system is set up in a way that isn't fair for everyone, and
Now,
we could do better.
now, when we first started these series, we talked about why people don't vote and why people are hesitant and a lot of things that people don't understand. And when you don't understand something, you put it in the back and you just don't worry about it anymore. A lot of people are just not familiar with what does Wall Street represent? What is Wall Street about? But that person is that on the education level that is saying, I don't do Wall Street, so it doesn't apply to me and I don't know what that means. Can you break that down?
Sure. Well, Wall Street is where stocks and bonds are traded, the New York stock market. And you say, I don't do Wall Street. I don't do Wall Street either. In fact, it's about 10% of this country that owns about 90% of the stocks. It is not, it is a small percentage of the country that benefits from all this economic activity on Wall Street. And one of the reasons, again, the reason they benefit so much is because of the way that the rules are written, tax advantages and things that are, baked into the United States Code, so that while we're, people in the real world, working class people are doing things like producing, manufacturing, serving, creating real goods and services.
Hmm.
People on Wall Street are frequently just moving money around, digital ones and zeros, and doing very well economically for that. Um,
And what some of us see in Wall Street, and we know about the stocks and how everybody is betting against one thing and the other one, and what is going up this time and what is going down with the Dow and the Jones and all that. But you said something about on my notes about the private equity and
yeah.
Toys R Us. What does that mean? Where are you
So
going with that? What does that? Where are you coming from?
so private equity is concentrations of money that they frequently buy up companies or other resources in
Mhm.
order to make money. And I grew up as a kid going to Toys R Us. It was like I want to say it was the happiest place on earth, but I think I'm thinking of Disney World.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. Yeah, so about 20 years ago, some private equity bought up Toys R Us and for $6.5 billion. And the way that they did it is that they borrowed a bunch of money and then said, well, Toys R Us, this company that we now own, Toys R Us has to pay it back. And so they saddled a company that employed tens of thousands of people with a whole bunch of debt. And then not long, and then eventually the company, crashed. It was spending 90%, more than 90% of their profits were going just to pay interest on their debt. It And this kind of thing happens in many, many industries where private equity comes in, swoops in, buys something, and then strips it from as much value as they can. They just loot the place for their profit. And so, as you know, Joanne, I'm trying to get people to collectively bargain for a better social contract. The legislative package, the Populist Act, that's this thick that you can read if you're a policy wonk like me. But one of the key parts of there is a piece of legislation that Senator Elizabeth Warren introduced called Stop Wall Street Looting Act, and it
Mm.
would rein in all sorts of I'm going to say nefarious practices that Wall Street does that stack the rules in their favor and against workers and other interests.
And when you talk about all the reading that we can find out and how all these things, and we're going to present it to the people bite by bite. But how do we stand individually to go against this type of thing with Wall Street? What are we voting on, and what segment does that act in our everyday lives?
So we live in a free country, right? I just heard today that Elon Musk is going to spend $100 million on influencing the midterm elections. And Joanne, you and I are free to do the same thing. If we want to, we could spend $100 million. Isn't that great that we all have this equal opportunity?
I
Except I don't have $100 million,
don't
and
have
I'm
it. I
pretty
don't
sure
have it.
you don't too. But what we do have is our votes. And here in North Carolina, which is a divided state between the red team and the blue team, we can use those votes to influence the outcome of the election. And if we can do it strategically, we can, in the same way that Wall Street takes over companies and profits from it, right? We can use our votes to take over the legislative process in Congress and profit from it by delivering a better way of life, improving the quality of life for all Americans.
Now we know about our vote that'll be coming in November. What can we do to better educate ourselves to understand how this works? Where do we need to go to read? What meetings do we need to go to get a better understanding so that we know what this vote actually means?
I mean, there's all sorts of information out there on the internet that you can read and learn from, depending on what you're interested in. You can always learn more on my website, votewithbrian.com. One of the things as we talk about, these concepts, this corporate power and the Wall Street and the influence, Joanna, can we talk about history for just a second?
Yes,
Because,
that's
it's this
important.
this idea of corporations, and you
Mhm.
might know that the Supreme Court had the Citizens United decision back in 2010 said corporations could basically spend unlimited amounts of money to try and influence elections, and
Mhm.
that elections have kind of gone downhill even faster since
Yeah,
then. But the
yeah.
thing that we forget is that corporations are made up. They are legal fictions. They only exist because laws create them. And
Mm.
when our country was young, if you wanted to have a corporation, you had to go to the legislature and ask them and say, here's what I'm going to do for the public good. And that's why I want these special privileges that come along with being a corporation. The idea of limited liability, saying, well, if something goes wrong, The company's responsible financially and not necessarily me. The idea, corporations have a lot of these special privileges, and we give them to them, we allow them to have them, but we should get something in return. We should make sure
Mhm.
that corporations are in fact serving the public good, instead of just their own self-interests.
And what I see is that we need to be able to, of course, we can reach out to you and you can give us all these answers. But I would like to dive into personalities because the people that own the companies, how they think and self-serving, and how did they get there? It's almost like a mental state that they need therapy, big time therapy, because it's just like they don't understand that we the people should be one and that we should be moving toward helping each other. They're not getting this until their world crashed down. And as I've said in previous episodes, we're all connected together. And if we edify each other, we can all be on a higher standard instead of someone simply having this thing where they're wanting to be higher or better level. The same as the red and the blue, with the dividing. Why is it that we're not wanting to come together? And we addressed before that there's a lot of trauma from being very young in the household, being in schools, being outside with crime and violence. We know that, and it triggers something in our heads. And sometimes we feel that whatever we are good at, maybe math, that turns into a greed for success, and a success in a way of being controlling because they were controlled. And to just go into these areas and go to corporations and to be so gentle and to be able to find out where their head is and how they treat their employees. We've heard about some large companies that are doing very well, but they treat their employees very poorly. And I would like to know, not this is not a question to you, but I would just like to know hypothetically, what is it that we do that we continue to accept bad treatment from others? And it's all about saying I have to have that paycheck, and now you're willing to accept the abuse. So you accept abuse from your boss, and then there are people that are accepting abuse from their spouse, and then you have these instructors. We have just really got to have to correction we have to make a giant step in just being better people, and that comes back to our fasting on the 15th of every month, so that we have clarity and we have peace, and that we have a desire to want to be better in this. So with all that being said, with the corporations and things of that nature, tell me, what steps can I do before? What are my actions before voting time when I'm a better person because of Wall Street and how I want to look at things? I want to look at things differently, and I want to go to your resources, and I want to go on the internet. What questions do I want to ask? Because if you don't know what to ask, you don't do it. What do I need to ask?
You want to think about what would a better functioning country, what would a country that served 100% of the people, what would that look like? How would that function?
Hmm.
You Again, so part of the answer is we talked about is UBI, it's changing the economy so that as the economy grows, right, as there's more people and more things to buy, you've got to add new money to the economy. And we're going to talk about this probably later this week about more about money. But right now we're letting Wall Street create most of this money and they give it to themselves. And so with UBI we can create money so it comes in at the bottom and lifts 100% of the people up, benefits all of us. Some of the other things that we can do to address the problems with Wall Street is, again, make it harder for them to influence elections. Remember, if corporations are made up, we give them special privileges. We don't have to give them the privilege to interfere in elections. We can take that back. Election can be for people, not for corporate profits. We can also restrict some of the things that they do, like stock buybacks. This is when a company issues a bunch of stock, and then when
Okay.
they have extra money, they buy some of it back. And as you
Mm-hmm.
can probably guess, when there's less of something, it becomes more valuable. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons that they do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so for many years, that was considered a form of stock manipulation. It was kind of a fraudulent practice. And then in the 80s, the regulators said, don't worry about it. And these days, 60% of corporate profits get spent on buying back their own stock. And that's money that could be invested in the people, could be
Mm-hmm.
invested in their products, could be invested in building things instead of just enriching themselves. And so the Populist Act would, among many of these unstacked Wall Street provisions, would prohibit corporate stock buybacks and instead put money back into more productive things.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, with the stop manipulation, that was just that term in itself, triggered something. That's just something that I wouldn't think of. And I just want to put that out, when you say populist act, when we say all of these things, and it's just like, oh, okay, have I thought about that today? No. Have I thought about it this week? No. Have I thought about it this month? No. So then when time comes, and it's time to vote, you are always doing the same thing. I'm doing a generalization, not all, but people are saying, let me see who this person is and let me see what they stand for. And now you've got weeks to try to find out what they believe in. And now you're going, are they a good representation? Do they have a good voice? Did you like the suit the guy had on? Did you like the jewelry the woman wore? We are going to dig deep all of this time up until election. I don't think I said that before. We're doing this up until election. So you have enough time to dig into Brian's brain and find out if he is reliving Gandhi in that head of his. And just find out what is going on because you didn't know, but he is going to point you to all the right resources if you don't know. Again, this is Justified Jewel. And I love doing this podcast and bringing this to you. I love having this series that is going on. And I am going to leave it to Brian. I'm going to tell you what the next episode is, but I'm going to leave right now so that Brian can tell you where you can pop those questions in. Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Joanne. You can visit my website, votewithbrian.com, sign up for the mailing list, and tell me what issues are important to you. And I don't have all the answers, Joanne. I'm just a guy who loves this country and has spent years trying to figure out what are the ways that we can do to improve it, and what are the ways that ordinary people can come together and form a partnership in order to put us on a better path. How do we unstack the systems that are tilted against us and make it work for all of us? So I don't have all the answers, but I have a answer. And if I can persuade you that it's better than the status quo, then I hope we can vote together in November to try and change our
Yes.
country.
Yes. And I'm thinking with the fasting and with reading like he is reading, we can't go wrong because we're going to be going at least in the right direction. But on the next episode, we're talking about money. That's right. Tune in. That's a biggie. Everybody knows what that word is. So until then, remember, subscribe. Remember to tell someone else to tune in, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.